So, welcome to another episode of My Take that is doing a kind of like weird thing, not a book, not a movie, not a TV show. We are doing the New York Times crossword puzzle. And I know it may sound strange, but I promise like this is going to be a great episode. I love the crossword, so stick with me, okay? The New York Times crosswords are kind of regarded as like the pinnacle of crosswords. Like when you think of crosswords, you think of like the New York Times crosswords. And if you can complete the weekend ones, you're typically seen as like somebody who's really smart and like crossword royalty. And like it's a thing. If you can complete Sunday New York Times crossword puzzles, like that's a thing. And crosswords are like a favorite hobby of mine, so I figured I'd want to talk about them. And it's just like, it's so rewarding to finish one, which I will also get into later, but like, it's rewarding when you get to finish one and see all of your hard work come to fruition. And I can only do the Mondays, which are like the easiest ones, but still, it's a New York Times crossword puzzle, so I don't even care that I can only do Mondays. Um, and like they may seem like an old person thing, but they're really actually fun. And they also have mini crosswords every day of the week. So people who are not as experienced in crosswords and like starting to do it, they can do the minis to like understand more about the puzzles and stuff. So yeah, I just think they're really great and everybody should try doing them. And that's why we're talking about them. Books, TV, music, and movies. All things that make a big impact on everyone. I'm constantly gushing about my latest read to anyone who will listen, so I figured I'd turn my rambling into something coherent that people might actually listen to, which means no tuning out halfway through. I am Maya Ghosh, and this is My Take. So, obviously, like, there is writing involved in crosswords, right? That's the whole point. But, like, we're gonna just start this spoil part of the podcast off with, like, a general overview of the world of crosswords, like the New York Times crosswords and how they work. So, how they work is one is published every day of the week. And as the week goes on, they get harder in difficulty. So Monday is the easiest, and then Tuesday is like still considered easy, but it's a little harder than Monday. Wednesday, Thursday are like the medium. Friday, Saturday, Sunday are hard. And Saturday is technically the hardest because most crosswords every other day of the week, so Monday through Friday and then Sunday, are the crossword grids are 15 by 15. And Saturdays are the biggest, they're 21 by 21 grids. And so that's why Saturday's technically the hardest because their grid is the biggest. But the Sunday clues are like as hard as the Saturday clues. And it's just like because Saturday's bigger, it's harder. But everybody always kind of commonly is like, oh, Sunday's the hardest because it's the last day of the week. So it's interchangeable. Saturday, Sunday are both the hardest. Like any of the weekend puzzles are really hard. And the same goes for the minis too. So they have mini crosswords that I think are like 5 by 5 or something. And those come out every day of the week. And same thing, Monday's the easiest mini and it ramps up. And on Saturday, the mini is bigger. And I don't know how much bigger it is, but it's definitely bigger. And the clues do get harder as the week goes on. It takes me much longer to finish the minis on, Friday, Saturday, Sunday than it does on Monday. And now what I mean by harder, and I guess what it is meant by harder, is that the clue gets more obscure, but they can have the same answer, right? So yes, some of the answers are more obscure the later on in the week you get, but also it could just be like the same final word that you're going to put in the crossword, but like use a more obscure way to get about it. So like if, for an example, if my take was like what you're trying to get in the crossword, which now that I've said that, it is like a personal goal to have myself featured in the crossword because that would be amazing. And like if that ever happened, I think I would scream and I would finish that crossword and I would print it out and I would frame it on my wall and like that would be it. But if my take was the answer, a Monday clue would look like podcast hosted by Maya Ghosh. Answer, my take. a Sunday clue would look something like, a review podcast started in March of 2020. Much harder because, that is like when my take started and stuff, but it'd be harder for somebody who's just like a casual listener of this podcast to know what it was about, right? So it's like, that's kind of where you're seeing the difference in clues. But the answer would like kind of stay the same. But yeah, that's kind of where the differences lie. Like, it does get harder over the weekend. And it also does matter like how clues are written. So the clues don't always like, it's not always like, oh, just fill in the blank with this or whatever, right? Sometimes it will end in a question mark. So like, one of the ones that I most recently did was like, horses neigh vote was the clue, and then it ended in a question mark. So whenever it ends in a question mark, it's always more of like a jokey answer. Or not horses neigh vote, horses no vote. And the answer was neigh, right? Because like, neigh, like it's a horse pun, right? So like, whenever it ends in a question mark, that's kind of what it is. It's more of like a joke answer. And then if it has an abbreviation in the clue, then the answer is abbreviated. So if it was like national, like cop organization, but instead of organization it said org, so if the clue is like national cop org, it would be FBI because that's technically an abbreviation. Or if it said like national cop organization, it would be Federal Bureau of Investigation. And then if it's plural, the answer always ends in an S. So if it says like tropical storms, it would be cyclones. Right? So there's always an S at the end, which is very helpful because when I don't know what the clue is asking, but it says S, I just fill an S at the end because I know the S is going to be there. So that's kind of all I have on like a general intro to crosswords. There's this really good New York Times article that talks all about the crossword, and that's where I got a lot of my information from when I was first getting into it. And I think if you just look up like how to do the New York Times crossword, that article should pop up, and it like explains everything, and it's like the crossword for dummies kind of thing. So it was really interesting. And so if you're wanting more information, you can go read that. But now we are just going to move on to like my general thoughts and feelings on crosswords, because it is called My Take. And obviously I love them because we're doing a podcast episode on them, but they're super great and they're so fun, and like I love the challenge of them because yes, it's so great to like look at a crossword and just know answers kind of instantly, but it also is really fun to like get challenged and to have to think about things, and you get to learn so many new things. Like, I've learned a bunch of different words and like learned how to figure out, guessing words by putting letters together and stuff. So it's really fun, and like I said earlier, it's really rewarding to finish them. Like, even the minis sometimes are hard, and I do the mini every day because the mini's a lot easier, obviously because it's mini, and so it's really rewarding to even finish the minis because sometimes the minis are complicated. And I do the Mondays, and it's like sometimes even Mondays are hard. Like, I can't finish every Monday, and they're difficult and challenging, but it's super fun, and it just like puts a smile on my face, and it allows me to like think about something too. It's not just like staring aimlessly into like the social media void. I'm actually trying to like think about things and learn things and expand my horizons, which is really fun. And I also have this weird thing, and I don't know why this is, where I can do crosswords on my phone super easily. Not super easily, like I said, they're difficult, but I can do them on my phone. But if you have like a book of printed out crosswords, like I struggle with them. And it might just be because the books are like printed out older Mondays, right? So the New York Times crossword, it like kind of is pop culture, like there's pop culture stuff in it, right? So if you go back to like 2005, the pop culture references from 2005 extend back to like into the 90s, because they're like, oh, it's like, somebody who was 30 in 2005 would understand pop culture references from the 90s, whereas I would have no clue. So now I'm doing things from like 2020, the pop culture references extend back to like 2010 and stuff. So I still get that because I was still like alive. Whereas like, you go further back, I'm not going to be able to do them. So it could be that because the books we have are like older, that I don't know those crosswords as well. But also it's just weird because you put like a crossword in front of me on my phone and I'll figure it out, but on paper I won't, which is so weird, but it happens. Crosswords are a really good way to kill time while waiting for something, because you can do them like at any point. You can like do a little bit of them and go away to like do something and then come back, and that actually helps sometimes. Like if you are struggling with a crossword, it does help to like stop doing it, look away, like go do something else and then come back, because like your brain just gets a fresher look at it, which helps. But I would do them a lot while like if I'm waiting for an appointment, or I had a TA period this year, and so I would do them a lot during my TA period when I didn't have anything to do. So they're really good for that. And it's fun to be collaborative with them too. Like it's, there's no shame in doing a crossword with somebody else and finishing it with somebody else. Like there was one day where me and a couple of my friends were hanging out, and I was doing them while we were waiting for something, and they were like, oh, let me help you with them. And so we just sat and like we're passing it back and forth and like reading out the different clues and like solving them together, which was really fun, and I really enjoyed it. And like it was cool because our knowledge, like we had different areas of knowledge and different things that we've been exposed to, so we combined to work together really well on them, and it was like a super enjoyable evening. And on this note, shout out to my friend Marissa, who loved to do them with me there for a while. I don't know if you still are doing the crosswords a lot, but there was a point in time not too long ago that we were doing them together all the time. So shout out to you, Marissa. I love you. And speaking of doing them with people, it's fun to make them into competitions, because my dad and I are competitive doing them all the time, because on the New York Times Crossword app, which is where I do them, the crossword for the next day comes out at either 3 or 7 p.m. the day before, right? So the Monday crossword will come out at either 3 or 7 p.m. Sunday. So as soon as that hits and I get the notification the Monday crossword is ready to play, like the race is on to see who's going to finish it first. It's usually me, because I don't know how, but I like think super quickly. My dad will take like half an hour to do them, and my average is somewhere in the like 15-minute range, but my record for a Monday is 7 minutes and 41 seconds, and I'm very proud of that, and also looking to beat that, but we will see. And my dad, like, the rivalry is not that strong, because he's like, I'm never going to be able to do a crossword in that short amount of time. I think it's just a difference in like brain processing speeds, like something we learned in psych about like crystallized versus fluid intelligence, and like me being younger and being able to process the writing quicker. I don't know. But he also says that I cheat because I use the check button, which is not true, because I do use the check button, but I don't use it until I'm either like halfway or 3/4 of the way through, because it'll give you little notifications. It'll be like, oh, you're halfway done. Oh, you're 3/4 of the way done. So I usually don't use the check button until then. And like in that New York Times article that I read, that I talked about earlier, like, they said, oh, feel free to use the check button and stuff. So, it's, I just am better at crosswords than him, and that's what I'm gonna leave it as. But like I said earlier, like they make me feel like I'm doing something academic and expanding my horizons, and it's great because I can be staring at my phone and doing a crossword, and if people are like, oh my god, you teenagers, you're always on your phone, I can be like, well, bitch, I'm doing a crossword, like, what are you doing, huh? I'm doing something academic while staring at my phone. So it makes me happy to do them, and they're fun, and I think everybody should try them. And, like, don't be afraid of not being able to do them, too. There was a long time before I was able to actually, like, finish a Monday, and I can't always finish the one. Like, even Mondays, sometimes I, like, struggle, and I'm like, okay, that's, like, I'm giving up on this because I'm never going to finish it. And sometimes I need to look stuff up, and that's okay. And sometimes I need to turn on auto check and guess letters to finish it, and that's okay, because the point of crosswords, like, is to learn, right? That's what that New York Times article that I was talking about, like, that was really their main point, was like, look, the point of crosswords is to learn and to expand your knowledge and look at different things. So if I don't know the capital of, like, the Ivory Coast, that's fine. I can look it up, and then I will know the capital of the Ivory Coast going forward, right? Like, and that's the whole point, is to learn. And so, yes, checking your crossword puzzle is fine and looking stuff up is fine. The whole point is that you're trying to expand your horizons. And so that's why I love them, because it's really like a fun way to learn more about the world and to educate yourself more and to just enjoy learning, because it's still a puzzle and it's still interesting, but you also are learning at the same time. So that's why I love them, and that's why I think everybody should try them, because even if you only get like 5 clues done, you learned 5 new things doing that puzzle. So I think they're great, and that's why I think everybody should do them. Now, before we wrap up, I do just want to give a list of like some common crossword words. So if there's anybody who's never done a crossword and you're looking to start doing a New York Times crossword, these are some words that I have noticed in a lot of my crosswords that I've done, and I feel like it would be bad if I didn't list them here, because it's like a running joke between me and my dad, like, oh, that's a crossword word. Oh, that's a crossword word. So I figured I would, talk about them here. First would be I do. I do shows up in like every crossword. If you're doing a crossword and it doesn't have I do in it, you're not doing a true New York Times crossword. Also like ear, which is usually like before to a poet, ear, shows up. Eon or era shows up a lot. Eli, as in like Eli Manning, shows up a lot. I don't know why, but Eli Manning shows up a lot. Epicee, E-P-C-E-E, I think is how you spell it, is shows up a lot as a fencing sword. That's the clue. That shows up a lot. And Apase, A-P-S-E, shows up a lot as a church recess is the clue. Adam or Eve or Cain or Abel show up a lot in like the biblical figures, or Eden. But typically it's like, oh, Garden of Eden, and you fill in like Eve or Adam or something. But they show up a lot. Words like anew shows up a lot. Like begin again, anew. Or shows up a lot. I don't know why, but they love ors. Like there's always like mining this or goal of mining or what you smell or whatever. Like or shows up everywhere. Erie shows up everywhere, because Erie can either be Erie the lake or Erie the canal or Erie like spooky. So Erie is like always in a crossword. Oreo shows up a little bit in crosswords. Like they like Oreo more than they like any other cookie. So maybe there's a conspiracy theory. Maybe Oreo pays the New York Times to get put in their crossword. I don't know. An odor shows up a lot as like a smell or one of your senses. Odor, like it just, yeah. Those are my list of crossword words that show up a lot. And on this topic, I do want to give you a fair warning and say the New York Times does sometimes like to try and get funny. So like there's an April Fool's one that I think was like April Fool's, I don't know what year it was. It was recently, either 2020, 2018, or 2019. One of those 3 years, the April Fool's one. The really long horizontal clues. So for those of you who don't know, I maybe should have said this earlier, but there's always really, really long horizontal clues. There's at least 3 of them in every crossword. And so for the April Fool's one, the clues were B-line, G-string, and T-set, and all you had to do was fill in. Like B-line was literally just B's all the way across the row. T-set was literally T's all the way across the row. G-string, literally G's all the way across the row. So sometimes they like to push it like that. And the question mark clues, like I said earlier, like kind of try to be funny. Like horses no vote would be nay, or one that really recently I had was like a workout at a furniture store and it was chair lifts. Like, really, New York Times? Really? Like, they try to be funny. So, like, keep that in mind. There is some humor in this, and, like, they do try and make things a little bit interesting. But, yeah, to wrap up, like I said, I love them. I think everybody should do them because they're so fun, and they're so informative, and so educational. And, my 2 crossword life goals are to be featured in the New York Times crossword for something. Hopefully for my take, but at least for something. And to be able to finish a weekend one. Like, I want to be able to finish one Saturday and one Sunday eventually in my life, and I hope that happens, and I'm going to work to make that happen. So, yeah, I have been Maya Ghosh, and this has been my take on the New York Times crossword puzzle. Thanks for listening.